Brouhaha comedy at Vintage Villains.
94.9 KROCK, Danville's rock station. It's the Rock Nation, and coming up Saturday in downtown Danville, another comedy event being hosted by none other than Ripper the Clown, joining me in studio. Talk about this event. This is kind of becoming, I don't want to say an annual thing, but about every couple of months.
Yes, well, Brouhaha returns to Vintage Villains this Saturday, February 24th. I'm really happy. This is going to be a musical night of comedy. Most of the comedians are going to be doing a musical, having some musical slant to their act. And I'm really, really happy with this roster. I think it actually might be the best roster we've ever had.
Are you keeping track, and I'm saying this in serious, are you keeping track of how many Brouhahas you've done, and just because you can kind of be like Breaking Bad or whatever, and just name every episode?
If I thought about it, I would be able to. I think at this point, between the comedy shows and the variety shows, we've done about 10.
That's great.
Yeah. And they've all, for the most part, been sellouts, which is really happy for me, that people enjoy what we're doing and they keep returning, and we keep having really solid crowds. That's really, to me, that's a sign that we're doing something that people enjoy.
Talk about the performers, ticket prices, when doors open, and just give us the nuts and bolts, Ripper.
Doors open at 7, show at 8. Advance tickets are available at Vintage Villains right now for $8. They're 10 at the door, and we've got a really amazing roster, as I mentioned. If people come to my comedy shows, they know that the opening spot is for a rookie. I've always liked to do that because, to me, it's like giving an opportunity to somebody who may not have that opportunity elsewhere. And so, it's been pretty much a staple since day one, but this time, and from here on, I'm going to be dividing that spot into 2. So we'll have 2 rookies, 2 newcomers doing shorter sets, and this time we have Albert King Company, who does Albert does ventriloquism, and we've got Shawn Hosseini performing musical comedy, and then we've got Dustin Danger.
When you say musical comedy, you mean like guys who are doing like singing comedy, songs, those kind of things?
Yes,
okay, I just want to clarify for everybody.
And then Dustin Danger, you are probably familiar with Dustin Danger. He's with the Villains.
Yep.
And the guy just came back from the Grammys. He was at the Grammys a couple of weeks ago. I mean, he's doing amazing work. I'm really proud of everything he's accomplished, and I saw him do basically a set of comedy at one of his concerts, and I was like, man, I need to have you do a comedy show. And we've got Larry Smith. He's a brilliant comedian from Springfield. He's performed all over the country. Campfire Jim. You may remember Campfire Jim.
I've had him on the show.
Okay,
it's fun.
Okay, yeah. He was a WCIA regular for a while, and he has not done comedy in 8 years. And he is making his triumphant return to Brouhaha 6, and I'm really proud to have that return happening on the show because I've always been a big fan of his work.
And I'm smiling because I kind of know the backstory there of why he stepped away, so I'm glad to see him back because he's a talented guy.
Yeah, he is. And then headlining Brouhaha 6 will be Rich Castle, and Rich Castle is absolutely one of the most brilliant comedians that I've ever met. I would not be doing what I'm doing today if it wasn't for his friendship and his inspiration and guidance. And I always tell everyone, if you want to do comedy, go and watch Rich Castle and just study this man and what he does, and he will teach you just by watching his act.
Talking with Ripper the Clown, they've got a big show coming up this Saturday in downtown Danville. Tickets are $8 in advance, 10 at the door. What time do doors open again on Saturday?
They open at 7, show at 8.
More with Ripper coming up. Another great local comedy act. Go support it. We're KROCK. 94.9 KROCK, Danville's rock station. It's the Rock Nation, and coming up Saturday, it's another great comedy show. Brouhaha, we're just going to say 10 because that's the number Ripper came up with a little earlier in the show, and I just like the sound of it. I think you should keep count. I think it's a fun idea.
Yeah, I have from day one. Like WrestleMania 1, 2.
Yeah.
That was kind of my goal at the beginning to keep track and maybe to have subtitles for each one, but I never got around to that. But like Brouhaha 2, The Return, or
I think you should just do that as a continuing marketing piece, and I just think it's fun.
Yeah, I do too.
Talk about, you had some great sponsors helping you out, and also talk about some of the performers and what they're going to do Saturday night.
We've got amazing sponsors. Joe Phelps at the Barber Shop in Westville. He's sponsored, and this is his 10th show in a row. So it's really good for me to have return sponsors. Woodard's Computing Services, they're a return sponsor. Chuck and Cloud's Vape Shop, the Gold Rush Pawn Brokers, both return sponsors as well. And then we've got B&J Music, our new sponsor for this show, and B&J, they're going to be providing entertainment before the show and during intermission. We've got Mel Hoax, Lee Reed, Chris Huffman, Jim and James Divan, David Snow, John Janes, and Ned Kellenberger, and they're all going to be performing again before the show and during intermission to kind of show everyone what B&J has to offer in the line of teachers if you want lessons there. So this is going to be really fun for everyone, and it's going to benefit B&J and all of our sponsors. I want all of our sponsors to benefit from the shows. That to me, I take pride in that, and having so many return sponsors, it tells me that sponsoring our shows behooves them as well.
talk about who's on the show and the list of artists that are going to be on there. It's another good one. I know you got a couple of rookies.
Yes, 2 rookies. Albert King, he does ventriloquism. Shawn Hosseini, he does musical comedy. Dustin Danger, he's from the Villains. He does amazing music. I mean, he's a fantastic musician, and he's going to be doing some musical comedy. Larry Smith, comedian out of Springfield. I mean, he just got accepted into, I think it was called the Paul Bunyan Comedy Festival in Michigan. I mean,
I've heard of that, and I'm a comedy guy. That's a big one. That's a huge one, actually.
This guy, I saw him perform his first set, and he won. We were doing the Gong Show out at Sleepy Creek, and he won a prize that night for his performance. And he's been a friend of mine ever since. And I'm so proud of what he's done with his comedy, because he's just a brilliant storyteller. And then we've got the return to the comedy stage of Campfire Jim.
Sure.
And that to me is very special, that after 8 years, Campfire Jim is returning at a Brouhaha show at Vintage Villains. That's really important. And, your listeners may have heard him on WCIA.
They've heard him on the show. He's been on this show, and I'll play some of his stuff this week, too.
Okay, cool, yeah. And then we've got Rich Castle headlining the show, and Rich Castle is just a brilliant comedian, and I've been a big fan of his work. And actually, my first introduction to local comedy, the first 2 comedians I saw were Rich Castle and Rick Omenson, and they've both become friends of mine, and I'm proud to say that Rich Castle is finally headlining a Brouhaha show, because I've wanted him to headline for years now.
Talk about ticket prices and when the doors open on Saturday.
Ticket prices are $8 in advance, 10 at the door. We always tend to sell out. So if you want your tickets, you should probably get them in advance. Mm-hmm. And doors open at 7, show at 8.
Ripper the Clown, appreciate it. We'll keep
Thank
hammering away all week long. Comedy show Saturday night, downtown Danville. Be there with 94.9 KROCK.
Brouhaha comedy at Vintage Villains.